Hello, welcome to Quackalope, and today we are giving you a how to play on Mind Management, or Mind MGMT as it's abbreviated. This game's really cool.
Yeah.
Currently available on Kickstarter. That's one of the reasons we're doing this how to play video. I do want to thank Jay and Off the Page Games for sponsoring this how to play video. They really make what we do here on the channel possible, and so it is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
If you're swinging in from the Kickstarter, hello, welcome to Quackalope.
Hey.
We're going to teach you how to play this game. We're going to do this in kind of a different way from how maybe some video channels do this. It'll be a little bit more conversational. We'll walk you through the overview, the gameplay, and then dive into the mechanics of each one of the two roles. This is a hidden movement, sort of set collection, mystery-based game. Where you're trying to catch a recruiter, and the recruiter is trying to avoid the rogue agents. Set in the world of Mind Management, which is a comic book series with some incredible storytelling, incredible art, that's all pulled in and part of this world and lore.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
I'm joined here with Jan.
Hey guys.
Jan is Quackalope adjacent. I am Quackalope. If this is the first time you're seeing our channel, and you are impressed with the quality, the B-roll, the audio, whatever we're doing, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. You joining the paddle here really lets companies like Off the Page Games know that you appreciate the time and effort that goes into producing this type of content. Whatever the case, let's go ahead and swing into, start at the overview.
Okay.
What is going on in this game? What is the goal? The win, loss, objectives, characters, roles. Should I keep going back and forth, or are you ready to take it?
So basically there's two main roles in this game. You're either a recruiter or you are rogue agents. A recruiter is a one-person role, while agents can be divvied up amongst multiple players.
It's either a 1v1 or a many versus one. Just like most hidden movement games.
And so in this particular game, the recruiter is trying to move to certain areas on this board in order to recruit some very powerful individuals that are scattered around the city.
Throughout the community. Now, the symbology on this main map here is really important because each icon will be tied to locations where you can recruit specific individuals. And you will be drawing from a deck of cards. Part of my job as the rogue agent is to halt your progress. Do everything I can to try to catch you and corner you and capture you here in a single location before you've either recruited 12 agents for the Mind Management Company or have passed this 1600 mark, and it is too late for me to have any impact on this environment. Now, before we get too heavy into the gameplay, that's sort of the overview, what's going on, we do want to acknowledge, at the top of the rulebook, there'll be a thing called the training mission. This is a way to walk you through the course of the game without throwing everything at you at once. Now, this is a intro mode to the game. It's going to teach you the mechanics and introduce them in an accessible way. But along with that, outside of just teaching you mechanics of the game, it's also going to teach you behaviors that are important in hidden movement games, and this hidden movement game specifically. If you're new to this genre, we do recommend that you start there at the training mode and work your way through the course of this game. The same thing is going to be true with the shift system of this game. This is a mechanic that brings a legacy and storytelling element into the world of Mind Management in a really, really cool way. But it'll be unlocking and developing powers and abilities and storytelling principles that can adjust the rules as you play. So starting on the training mission, working your way to the full beginning setup, and then diving through the shift system is probably the best way to experience the full
100%
kind of story of this game. That being said, for this how to play, we're going to teach you all of the rules. And then as you're working through the training mission, you'll have a context for where they are placed within the game. It doesn't change any rules at the core. Instead, it reduces and reveals some information that helps you learn the game better. So starting here at the top, let's break down everything people are seeing in front of us so they understand the things we're referencing and what we're talking about.
So this game has a lot of really unique components. And the way that we're going to be working through those components is mostly what side belongs to what part, right?
Absolutely.
So, for example, and let's start with the basics here. The recruiter is going to have a private board. That private board is dry erase, so you will be able to draw on top of this. And the idea of why you're drawing here is that you're marking every hour, every step you took. So if you moved up or down or sideways, you would mark it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it will go sequentially upwards.
We'll dive into exactly how this board is utilized and the correct way to make marks on it in a little bit. But let's continue working our way through what's on your side of the board here.
So next up, we have your victory condition for the recruiter, which is the new recruits that you're going to be bringing into the fray, into the company. Anytime you collect those recruits, you're going to be laying them out here, but we'll get into the details of how you do that later on. After that, we have some very important tokens to talk about. We have our step tokens. And we also have our mind slip tokens.
Now the mind slip tokens are going to give you a special movement ability based on some cards. The step tokens are going to be giving me, the rogue agents, information on your whereabouts based on the questions that I ask.
Or decisions that I make based on the characters I have available.
Absolutely.
And speaking of mind slip tokens, these are the types of cards that correspond to that. So during the game, you're going to have special agents, and those agents are going to be able to help you essentially break the rules of the game a little bit.
This Pipe Girl recruiter here has movement conditions that are different from other potential special agents that you have.
And so when you do that, you have to place a mind slip token right here on the track to denote that you just placed a mind token.
The time when you used it. Now, what are the last things that you have over here on your side of the board?
Yeah, so this is very important. These are the feature cards. So these cards essentially are going to show you a symbol that's going to already be replicated here on the board.
The different iconography. There's the names up here on the side for the rogue agents to reference, along with all of the icons throughout this area.
But what you're trying to do with these cards is keep them safe. The recruiter is going to draw 3 of these, and then there's going to be other cards later on that are going to be public information, but these 3 cards are your victory condition. Okay?
They're how you recruit, by passing over those zones. And the last few things you have over there.
So this game has, I think it's a pretty interesting way of kind of like breaking down the rules of the game without being too cumbersome. So every role is going to have cards, and those cards are going to represent their actions. This is only a reference. You don't even have to play with these, but it's good to have. So essentially what you do is you place them down here, and you're able to bring them up in case you have a question.
They slot under the board just for a quick reference guide instead of a bunch of pamphlets next to you. It's actually a pretty unique system once you figure out how it works.
I like it.
And so you have 2 abilities over here.
So the abilities that you're going to be able to undertake as a recruiter are step and move an immortal.
And we'll dive into those when we get into the nuance of how you're going to play your recruiter. And then finally, you have a bunch of tokens, and this is going to be a part where we have to acknowledge everything here is still in prototype. The rules are, I believe, fairly set in stone at this point. The game is really well developed. We've tabled it quite a few times. We didn't get any of our Mayhem tokens with us, so we decided to use gems in the gameplay that we just put up. The Mayhem tokens will actually cordon off different zones. You'll play them down. We'll touch on that when we go through the setup. These will not be the final components. They will be much more graphically relevant and accurate to what this game is. We just thought these would show up nice on camera.
And they did.
So
check out the video.
Moving over here to the rogue agent side, I currently have a bunch of abilities slotted under my board here. I have move, ask, reveal, push, and capture. Again, we'll touch on all of those in just a moment. But each one has a quick reference guide that I've went ahead and hidden just to clean up the play space a little bit. Along with that, I have my rogue agent tokens, just like you have your immortal tokens.
Which we'll talk about soon.
These will be moving around the board and have certain special abilities and effects that are relevant to them. I have my special characters over here, my rogue agents. I have Henry Lime, I have Dusty, I have Maru, and I have Bill Falls. Now, each of these are going to have special abilities associated with them as well. We, again, will touch on that in just a moment. And then finally, I have my mind tokens.
The coolest component.
These are going to be how I take notes across the board. They are dry erase tokens. The final component will have a red and a white side for information that is 100% true and locked in versus information that you think is true or you kind of heard a rumor of. But you'll be writing on these and spreading them out throughout the board to try to create a pattern for you to follow, but you're only ever going to have 15. You cannot take notes outside of these dry erase tokens.
Not at all.
And when you run out of them, you're going to have to pick some up to reposition your thought process. Really, really cool component. And then finally, down here on the center of the player board, we have 2 different rows. So when you set up, that'll be the recruiter side, this will be the rogue agent side, and it corresponds to the names and the iconography of every symbol here, and our time token.
Yeah.
This will be the area where we track rounds, and we also track information that I have. Important to pay attention to, because at every red mark is when you reveal what you've accomplished when it comes to victory conditions throughout the game. And then every mark or note that I take, I should always try to make sure it corresponds to the time that that event happened.
Yeah.
Because information changes as more hidden movement abilities happen.
Yeah, and we can give you some tips as to what to write on these, but we'll get there soon.
Let's go ahead and break down the setup of this game.
Okay.
Let's get everything to the point where people are going to be ready to play, and then dive into the nuance of how each role operates throughout a turn.
Okay.
Every kind of ability or option they have, right? So starting here at the top, and the easiest way for us to do this setup is to follow it step by step, exactly what you're going to be seeing. Choose a player to be the recruiter.
That would be me.
The other players pick agents. Now there are 4 agents available. This will be based off of how many people you're playing with. If you're playing with 1v1, I'll control all 4 agents. With 2, we'll each control 2. With 3, we'll each control 1, and the 4th one will be controlled by the party. And then finally, with 4, everyone will control one of these different agents.
Yep.
Next, we're going to place down 5 Mayhem on the board. Now, this is important. Again, these are the tokens that aren't tied to the actual
They're not
game.
actual Mayhem, but...
There are tokens. We are going to place these, and they restrict movement across the board.
Yep.
So starting with the recruiter, and then moving in a clockwise order, you'll place 1 down until all 5 have been placed.
So that means that if you have a full assortment of 5 players, a recruiter would only get to place these once.
Yep.
Okay, so it could be very uncomfortable for the recruiter. So let's say that I decide to place these here. Then I would, since we're playing in clockwise order, I would go ahead and now say I want to place there.
Now, one thing you have to think about as you place these down is, like I said, they restrict movement of the Immortals, they restrict movement of the rogue agent, and they restrict movement of the recruiter themselves.
Yep.
So these become barriers that make it harder to move around the map. You don't have too much information at this point when you play them down, but you want to do them in a way that will hopefully lock off or cordon a zone to give you an advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving down here to the recruiter's setup. You're going to write a 1 on your secret board. So go ahead and bring your secret board out here. This will be your starting point. In a hidden movement game, you always have to have a location that you begin at. So go ahead and write down 1 at one of these zones.
And actually, as a few tips for the recruiters, so one of the most important things you have to do is make sure that you are recording the information on the board. So for example, if you have some Mayhem already there, you should probably write it down so that you know where you're placing that number 1, because it is super important that you understand where everything is located.
You don't want to accidentally cross a zone or break the rules. Now, there is a way to mediate for this. We'll get into that in just a little bit.
Yeah, so let's say that I want to go somewhere where it's pretty accessible. It's usually recommended that you don't go to the borders. Once you play, you'll understand why that is.
It's a lot harder to get out of edge locations, but if you really want to mess with some people, could be a strategic place to start.
Only I would recommend experts for that.
So you went ahead and wrote a very clear 1 there at the top. Then you're going to take 3 recruitment cards and update your secret board.
And the reason, and that's important too, the reason why everything is being split up in this order is because you don't want to give too much information to a recruiter early on where they're placing themselves at a perfect area, right?
Yeah.
So once you pick those 3 cards, you'll place them. This is all secret. No one can see this but you.
Now, what these are going to say is you're going to have information. You're looking for the Thought Shield umbrellas, the Faraday Mind Tree, and the hallucinogenic torches. You're going to go through here and circle every single one you're trying to cross. Why this is important is because visually, it'll help you track or understand exactly what you're looking for on the board.
And there's usually 5 of each of these symbols. So you're going to want to do your best to kind of circle this as best as you can, and immediately you'll start seeing a path form in front of you.
Yep. Once you've gone through the process of circling all of these different locations or items you're looking for, you're then going to take 4 more moves. This will set up the start of your game. It'll not only lay the map that your secret agents could try to follow, but also allow you to get some early victory points right away.
Yeah. So for example, I am perfectly positioned to take some points right now. And it seems like the most effective manner for me in this particular game would be to do something like so.
Yeah. Now, an important note in taking your first initial moves, you can never double back on yourself as the recruiter. And so strategically taking a move that gives you a pattern or opens a vein for you to follow and unlock more victory points is really key at this place. You don't want to lock yourself into a corner.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and that actually applies to any part of the game. Think about it almost like Snake, right? You never want to bite your tail.
Yep.
So once we do that, since you just saw that I recruited 1, 2, 3 different circles
by passing over locations with those 3 specific icons on them,
I would now place these 3 recruits right here on the board to let the rogue agents know that I'm already a quarter of the way to winning the game.
And you also indicate that this time token is right here at the 1 through 5 mark. That means that the first 5 hours have passed, and now we are sort of coming into the game.
Yeah.
Next, you're going to play your 4 Immortals on 4 different spaces, anywhere except on the outside border.
Yeah.
Now, these Immortals are going to be really key to the way you play the game. They restrict the kind of actions that I'm able to take on spaces where they're located, and so spreading them out in a way that blocks as many different spots as possible could be really strategic. But they also allow me to mess with you in a really unique way.
Yes.
I can shakedown, which is try to reveal your hidden information cards and make it so they're no longer effective.
Yeah.
So, as far as the strategy goes here at this point, a good spread that covers as many different icons as possible is usually the best way to go.
Yep.
Keeping in mind the icons that you yourself need to collect.
Yeah, so the Immortals can provide a lot of information. Like, immediately the rogue agent is going to be assuming why you placed your Immortal in that particular spot. So you don't want to give too much information away.
Now, another thing to keep in mind as well, spreading them sort of evenly can be beneficial because towards the end of this setup set, we're going to be revealing 2 more cards that your Immortals are able to match symbols and actually gain a victory point or earn a recruit of their own.
But not just that, they also provide information for the rogue agent to know what cards the recruiter does not have.
Yeah, and we'll get more specific on that in just a moment. We're going to come over to the agents. I'm going to place their tokens on spaces around the outside border. And at this point, the only information I have is that you've gone 5 steps, and this is the pattern that you've placed your Immortals down. So I might start with a sort of spread. I might try to be close to a Immortal in order to push them around. And each one of my agents have a special ability. We'll dive into that in just a bit, but that should factor into where and how you're placing them.
Yeah.
So they've been placed. We're going to come down here to agents as well. We're going to place a Mind Slip token on the space adjacent to a temple. Now, a Mind Slip token is going to be a powerful ability that allows our recruiter to take a special move action at any point throughout their turn. I want to place this in a place that is hard for you to get to.
Yes.
That kind of corners you. And again, they cannot double back on themselves. So looking at the map here with these set up the way they are, I'm going to place that right there.
Yeah, it's a perfect place for it.
Because it is a tight spot that makes it very hard for you to get out of that corner if you decide to go there.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you're safe because the recruiter always starts with a Mind Slip token right behind his board.
This is another active ability that they can get if they pass over that zone. However, if they pass over that zone, they do not have to announce that they have done that. It just stays on the board until at one point they'd like to play a Mind Slip. Then they remove it from the board, letting us know that at some point they were there, and they go ahead and place it down on the time track, indicating when they took a Mind Slip action, but not specifically where they were when they took it. Next, we're going to reveal 2 more recruitment cards for Immortal Recruiting. This is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So go ahead and flip 2 more of those cards. And we have flipped the Flux Coffee Shop, and we've flipped the Confusion Idol. What these do, it not only gives me, the rogue agents, more information on what you're not looking for, or where you might be, but it also gives the Immortals a way that they can play with the game state themselves if at any point they are on matching symbols. So let's see here, a coffee shop here with this Immortal, and another one over here with this one. They can go ahead and complete this, giving you a recruit that's going to be placed up here on this track and scoring you 1 victory point. This card then comes over into the rogue agent's zone, and another one is going to be flipped. Now, these never duplicate, so every one that comes out gives me a little bit more information on what you don't have in your hand of 3. So now you're looking for the subversion booklet. You want to balance how you're playing and how you're utilizing these cards. They can lead to you winning the game.
And they can lead to you losing because you're giving too much information too quickly.
After you've revealed these 2 cards for Immortal Recruiting, you're going to go ahead and go down, and the recruiter is going to take their first turn.
Yeah.
So this is the part where we're going to dive into sort of everything on our brain and the options that we have when we take our first turn.
So with the recruiter, it's actually pretty simple. You only have 2 things that you're going to do at any given time. So you can only move orthogonally in this game. Specifically as a recruiter and as rogue agents, Immortals will not have to do that. So as I'm moving through here, I can decide to either go around this bend or go through here. And the way I'll do that is by essentially just writing a number right there in the upper corner. So you'll notice that I've already gone through these 2 spaces without any recruitments.
Okay.
That's not necessarily the most effective route, but it's a safe route because we already know that the rogue agent is right above this wall. So I don't think I want to go there right now.
It depends. It's a hard position to be in. Now, an important note, as you take your action, you're going to move up this time token, right? You're only going to reveal what you've recruited at the end of your second cycle.
Which is every time that it's orange right there.
Yeah, every time that it's orange here. Basically, there's 2 actions in every round of the game, is kind of how you want to consider it. Along with that, you could have, because you have a mind token available, went ahead and done a slip action.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about how you utilize those here on the board.
So essentially, anytime that you activate a slip action, what you'll do is that you'll take your mind slip token and you will place it right next to the space where the time track is. Essentially letting the rogue agent know, okay, they just did some funky stuff. I should watch out for that.
Let's pull out your 2 possible recruiter cards and talk about what they can do. Now, in the final game, there will be probably more options and different variations, but right now, we have the Pipe Girl and we have the Ad Man. When you place your Mind Slip token, you're able to move based on their abilities.
Yes.
The Ad Man's going to move you in an orthogonal direction, exactly 2 spaces away.
Yep.
And you have to move 2 spaces away when you use this.
Yep.
The Pipe Girl is going to do a diagonal direction, also exactly 2 spaces away. Now, the important thing to note, this can cross zones that you've already been in.
Yep.
This can cross these Mayhem tokens. They can break those elements of the game. So this is a way for you to get out of a tight spot or over your own tail in a way.
But to be clear, you cannot land on your tail once you finish that move.
You absolutely cannot. You have to be in a legal adjacent space.
Yeah.
So,
and that's pretty much it. So the last thing that we want to talk about before moving on to the rogue agents is the move Immortals actions.
Yes.
And there's a few things that you already touched on. So with the move Immortals action, you can move any Immortal on the board 1 space. But Immortals are a little bit more agile.
Yep.
They can also move diagonally. As we mentioned, Recruiter moves orthogonally, Rogue Agents move orthogonally, Immortals, they can move however they want. So as an Immortal, you're trying to do some very important things. You're either going to block out symbols so that the Rogue Agent cannot reference those later on.
During the ask portion of my game.
Or you're trying to match these wonderful little symbols right here that you've already taken out in their public knowledge. So, for example, right here with my coffee shop and my subversive bookstore, I could look at the board state and determine which of these is maybe possible for me. So right now I have 1 person right here at the subversive bookstore. So I can go ahead and move Mr. Immortal number 2 right here, and I have immediately claimed another feature on the board.
This will come over to me, and another one of those will cycle right down here. So I know that you're not looking for the reconnaissance parrots. Interesting. Good for me to know.
However, there's one more little tidbit here.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to be in areas where you can complete more than 1 by moving another Immortal, you could reveal any space where you've been at to the Rogue Agents and move an Immortal to a space that you need to be in.
It allows you to give yourself 1 additional push.
But only 1.
Yep.
And that is really it for the Immortals.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and that is really it for the Recruiters.
Yeah, and then it's going to come down to the Rogue Agents gameplay. Now, like I said, the entire part of the game for me is to identify where you've been, figure out a map or get information around where you might be, and then finally capture you on a specific point in a specific zone before I run out of time or you successfully recruit 12 individuals.
Yep.
That is a hard task for me to do.
It's not easy.
And with 3 or 4 people playing on my side of the board, maybe our brains will combine to be able to do it. But let's go ahead and talk about all the actions that are going to be available to you when you play. At the top of your round, you're going to be able to activate 2 of your special rogue agents. Each one is going to have a unique ability. Along with that, each one will get to do a move action and then one of these other 4 actions: ask, reveal, push, or capture. Let's start by going over these basic actions. Then I'll talk about the special abilities of each agent and talk about how I might use them here on the board. So move is going to be very simple. You can move up to 2 spaces in a orthogonal direction. So right here with my girl Maru, could move 1, 2, could move 1, 2, never diagonal and never across your Mayhem tokens.
And it's always up to.
Yeah, it's always up to. I could stop at 1 if I wanted, I could move none if I wanted. Along with that, these locations here at the center, we have the shrines. You can see the bridges connecting them to every space next to them. That is the only way that both the recruiter and the rogue agents can move in an adjacent direction. So for instance, if Bill was right here, he could move 1, 2, and cross over in a diagonal way. After that, you can do one of the following 4 options. You can ask. Ask is going to be inquiring about one of these symbols here, trying to get a little bit of information.
Yeah.
So I would have to look at the board and see where the Immortals are. The Immortals are blocking my ability to ask about every icon they're currently on. So I could not ask about the Subversion booklet.
Not at all.
I could not ask about the Observation Monks. I could not ask about the Flux Coffee Shop or the Subliminal Billboards. Over there, we have another Subversion booklet. We have the Suggestive Graffiti. And then finally, we have the Collective Mind Pool right there on this Immortal. So all of those spaces are blocked for me. And I could force someone off. I could try to adjust the board to allow me to see them. But here at the start, I really just want to gain some information. So I might move a space over here and go ahead and ask you about C4 K9 Assassin Dogs.
So what happens now is that the recruiter now has to look at their board, and if they've been to any spaces that have that symbol or that feature, they would have to announce it directly to the rogue agents. Here's the trick though. If you've been to more than one of those features,
absolutely,
you get to choose which one that went into.
So,
however, in this particular game,
You've
that
only
would
been to
be, oh my god, terrifying, because that is the last space I was in.
That's a good point, but I don't know that. So I would have moved over. I would have done my second action to ask about those C4 K9 Assassin Dogs, and you would have indicated that you have, at some point within the first 6 hours of the game, been there. That's when these come down. You can take notes however you'd like, but one of the suggested things is to go ahead and mark 1 through 6 right here on this location. I know at some point at the start of the game you were in that area. The next thing that I could do, now again, you can only do one of these per action phase.
So you always move and you always do one action.
You always move and you always do one action. I could reveal. So let's say a few turns have passed and I have moved myself over to this location. And I know sometime between rounds 1 through 6 you were on this location. I could say, tell me exactly when. Reveal the time that you were on that location.
So essentially what would happen here, and this is a very important component mention, I think we talked about this before.
Yeah.
All of these mind tokens are actually going to be double-sided.
Yep.
So there's going to be a red space for a non-confirmed token.
Yep. And a white side for confirmed information.
And now, because Jesse went there, he gets a confirmed.
Now you'd be far away
element
from
here.
this by this point, because this is later in the game.
Sure, but in this case, I would be exactly here.
Yeah.
So Jesse would be able to reference the board and be like, oh my god, you're right here.
Yeah. That'll give me information, solid information on exactly when they were at a location. This can help narrow down the direction that they were going or really reinforce your thoughts already. So that's the reveal action. Another action that you could take would be the shakedown and push. So again, 1 per turn. But if I didn't do either of those and I'd moved Bill over here into a location with an Immortal, I could then shake down and push that Immortal. How this would work. I first identify any icon here on the board, and I look over you, and I say, do you happen to be looking for hallucinogenic torches?
Am I? Well, yes. Yes, I am.
Now, I of course have extra information. More often than not, you'll inquire, you'll shake down on a location, and they'll say no. But in this case, if you happen to have narrowed the field down enough that you get it correct, they will look at their board, realize that they are in fact looking for exactly what you've asked for, and hand you this recruitment card. That'll come over here into your pile of information, and they will be unable to score any more victory points based off those torches.
And it's recommended that you delete these from your private board as well.
Any hallucinogenic torches they've already scored will still count, but they cannot pass over a new zone to score additional points. That is a good way to limit how they're collecting victory points in the game.
It is a very good way.
It is. So that's going to be our shakedown and push action. The final stage in this is going to be to push an immortal to a orthogonal zone. This is a good way to limit their ability to maybe collect some items or push them into an area where some of your special abilities can impact them a little bit more.
Yep.
Because you really are limited in the amount of movement you can do for each one of your characters. One important thing to keep in mind, movement restrictions still apply.
Yes.
You're going to be moving orthogonally, and you cannot pass locations like Mayhem zones.
And I think we should give a little bit more context as to how Mayhem technically works here. So, as we said, Mayhem is a barrier. So if you were trying to get Bill here to go to this side, it is impossible. He cannot go through that space. Our immortal friends, they also cannot go through that space. And that also means that from any direction, they will be unable to do that.
However, your immortals could move diagonally across this line. Mayhem blocks the direct ornithological direction, but not
orthogonal.
Mayhem blocks the direct orthogonal direction, but not the diagonal direction.
Yep. And so as a recruiter, if I were to try and get to that collective mind pool, it's going to be tough.
You need to go around. The final action that you can take is going to be the capture action. Now again, you can only take one of these actions per agent per turn. The capture action is going to be very straightforward. If I'm on a zone where you currently are, like let's say I went over here with my handsome guy Dusty, and I said I'd like to do a capture action there on that zone,
I would likely flip the table because it's the very first turn.
That's true.
But yes, the rogue agents would win immediately.
Yeah, you're going to reference exactly where the rogue agents are. More often than not, they're going to say no. That's all they have to say, and then you move on with your game. However, in this case, if you're like me and you're perfect at about everything that you do, you'd win the game.
Exactly, but I don't think it actually happens like that in real life.
Probably not.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Oh, who knows?
So those are going to be the actions that you have available. Let me go through the special options that you have here on the board.
And then talk about your allies, because they're pretty good too.
I do have an ally. I have a Black Ops Dolphin here as well. We'll dive into exactly what the Black Ops Dolphins can do here in just a little bit. So, starting here with Henry Lime. Henry Lime has a persistent ability. Now, there's going to be a difference between abilities that actually cost you your action phase or your action step and abilities that affect the game state as a whole. Henry is one that is always active and always affects both of us. Immortals cannot recruit in the space that Lime is in or any of the spaces that are orthogonally adjacent to him. So, Lime is over here. If I'd moved him into this middle zone, these immortals would be ineffective. Now, I did just notice something in our game setup.
Which is very important.
Very, very important. Immortals can never be on the same space as another immortal. It's a movement restriction, so you can't even force them into those zones. We just sort of scattered and placed one there, so I wanted to make sure that I'd directly addressed it. But Henry here would keep any of them from recruiting in these zones. So for instance, this Confusion Idol right here, if you had had a second match to that, that one would actually not count for a pair.
Yep.
And just because I like flavor text,
I had a feeling.
There's a little bit at the bottom of each one of these cards. They let you know why these abilities exist. Localized amnesia field. Lime's crippling paranoia causes him to constantly radiate a field of negative psychic energy, which is bad for the immortals. Okay.
Interesting.
Let's move down here to Maru. And after you activate your characters, sorry I didn't reference that, you will either tip them over here on the board to indicate that they've been activated, or, depending on what's easier for you, go ahead and flip your cards over. You get to activate 2 agents per turn, and they only reset or reactivate once all 4 have gone. So, moving over here to Maru. Action. The recruiter must truthfully answer yes or no if they are currently on any of the spaces covered by your psychic negation. So, this is important. Psychic negation is going to affect orthogonal directions 2 spaces away.
Yep.
So if I asked you here, I'd spend my action to ask. So this is another ability, so I couldn't do any of these 4. And you'd have to answer truthfully. Are you currently on any of these locations? You don't have to tell me where, you just have to say if you are.
And I would say no in this case, because I'm not there.
Since I've already captured him, and the game's already technically over.
Exactly.
Psychic negation. Orphaned and brainwashed as a child, Maru has grown into an angry, driven agent of change with the ability to cancel other psychic powers. That's why I can reveal sort of where you are. Let's move over here to Dusty. Dusty has a free action. This is not a persistent effect, and it is also not an additional action that costs your action turn. This is something you can do on his turn specifically, completely for free.
Yeah.
Okay. Can move an agent 1 space. Add 1 for each recruitment card discovered. So that's going to tie down here to our push and shakedown ability. Every time I shake down one of your Immortals and correctly guess a card, such as these hallucinogenic torches here, that will add to his ability. He is able to move an agent 1 space and 1 additional space for each one of these I have out of your hand.
For a total of 4 if you're lucky enough to get all 3 of them.
These do not pair with the cards revealed and collected by the Immortals.
They're just a reference, really.
So keep them separated, or make sure you have a note on how many you've discovered.
Or just take a look at the board. It works the exact same way.
Yeah. You want to read this one?
I would love to. So, Nero Rhythm.
Yep.
Pop star whose music and lyrics are embedded with secret messages capable of influencing both individuals and moms.
Yeah, so you kind of get some music going and encourage someone to move in a direction.
I like it.
Coming down here to Bill Falls. Bill Falls is also going to have a free action. Again, this is an action that you can take on his turn specifically, but it doesn't cost your main action phase. Move adjacent Immortal 1 space. This is not considered a push. This is considered a move. So some modifiers in the game will, rely on or affect push specifically. So if Bill was over here, I could choose any of these to move. Movement conditions will still apply. Immortals cannot be on similar spaces, and they cannot pass through Mayhem locations. So I could go ahead and move this guy down here.
Yep.
What you want to pay attention to, again, is going to be potential matching symbols. And then finally, detect weakness. Preternatural ability to find the weakest spot in an opponent, usually with his fists. Yeah, makes sense.
And another really important thing about this is that remember that once an Immortal is on your space, you cannot activate any of the actions besides push and shakedown.
Yeah.
So Bill here could also have the opportunity to just take a pesky Immortal out of his way so that he can go ahead and fulfill that ask action.
Yeah, that's important to remember. If you're on a location with Immortals, it's worth saying one more time. Ask, reveal, and capture are not available to you. They block those abilities. You can only push and shake down or use an extra ability to encourage them along.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how you sequence these is going to be really important. One final time, just because it's really important to remember. You can use each one of these agents 1 time per round of the game. So all 4 will act between sequence.
Yep.
You'll act with 2 of them at a time, flipping them over or tipping them over when you've taken their turn, and each one can do a move plus 1 other action ability. Then it'll go back over here to the recruiter. You'll go through a movement phase, step phase, move an Immortal, potentially collect some extra victory points, and then back over to your final 2 recruiter cards.
And one of the most important things about the recruiters is that you can take those actions, right? The movement that's always there, and the additional action in any order.
Now, one key thing to keep in mind, you cannot, however, split it.
Correct.
So you get 2 movement. You cannot take an action in the middle of your movement phase. So you either complete your movement or do your movement after your action's been taken. The last thing I have here, currently we only have 1 available. There's a mechanic or system in this game that'll actually potentially bring more of these in.
Maybe.
The rulebook hints towards it, so I think it's comfortable saying it. But we currently have a Black Ops Dolphin. This is going to be a This is going to be an ally that you can apply to any phase of this game, depending on when kind of the ally card says. Capable of aquatic-based espionage, assassinations, and demolition work.
Oh, wow.
This has a when executing an ask action. So specifically, when any of your agents are doing an ask, I can flip this card over, and the recruiter must place step tokens on all spaces they have moved onto previously that contain the requested feature.
That's very powerful.
So when I do an ask, you only have to reveal one, and you could reveal one anywhere on the board that you've touched. So if you've walked over 3 different spaces, you can choose where you want to reveal your step as a way to distract us.
Yeah.
This will make it so that every single one of them are identified.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So that breaks down sort of the flow and the turns of the game. We do have a full gameplay video where we go back and forth quite a bit. So if you're interested in seeing how the game functions, how we're actually kind of walking through these steps, swing over there and take a closer look.
Yep.
The end of the game. Let's go over how Endgame triggers one more time.
So the recruiter wins the game by either placing all 12 of his recruits onto the board, or by pushing the game all the way down to the 16 mark.
And the agents win the game one way.
By capturing the recruiter.
I have to identify the location and capture the recruiter.
Or, potentially, trick the recruiter into biting his own tail.
That's true. That's true. If I get you into a corner where it's impossible for you to move, then you sort of just sit there till we find you.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the game, the core game is going to have what I think is one of the most unique systems I've seen in a hidden movement game. These are going to be called
the shift system.
Yeah. These are going to come with mechanics, cards, rules, modifiers to the core game that you open based on who's won or lost. It allows you to play through a narrative story, allows new mechanics to be integrated into the game that really change up the game state quite a bit. And potentially shifts the balance of the game back and forth so that things become a little even between players. If you're just really good and I'm having a hard time identifying you, the package that I open may give me a slight advantage on the next game. And then if you continue winning, that'll continue happening until I can maybe balance out the game.
It's a really extreme way of assuring catch-up mechanics.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
We can't tell you about them.
No, sorry.
If you watch our
put these
gameplay,
away.
Yeah, if you watch our gameplay video, you'll see that some information was actually forcefully redacted.
Yeah.
We opened them up and we're super excited about them.
Mind management did not like that.
No, they cut in and actually edited our video.
Yeah, you should go see that because it's really weird.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. It was after the video was uploaded and everything.
You're not supposed to be able to do that on YouTube.
I didn't think people could edit our videos on YouTube, but...
Okay, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. However, I have to say, that system is one of the things, even though I can't talk about it that much, one of the coolest elements of this game. So don't negate it. It's really, really neat. And
it's one of the coolest things.
Worth opening up on your own. Let's get to the final stage of this how to play, which is going to be the strategy guide, the thought process behind how you play this game. If you're watching this to teach your friends, this is the part you don't share with them so that you can crush them.
Which is what you want to do.
Which is what you want to do anyway. Not really be good teachers, please moderate the game.
You don't want them to win ever.
No, help them along, give them some of these tips and tricks. Playing the recruiter side, what are some of the things you think about? What's sort of the biggest challenge when it comes to the game?
So I've had a lot of experience with Recruiter at this point, and I have to say that one of the most quintessential things that you have to do is map out your trajectory and have a contingency plan. At the beginning of the game, it is crucial that you try and get as many as these recruits as possible onto this board. If you get if you take a little bit too long, like you're maybe halfway through the game and you've only collected 5, it's going to be really tough for you to make it there because, as you saw, that push mechanic, that push and shakedown mechanic, is going to be used a lot in the game. And there's a high probability that all your 3 cards are going to be taken out. So you want to try and maximize all the most amount of points that you can get as fast as possible.
Yeah, and one big thing to remember, a thing that can probably slip your mind, especially the first time you play, your slip ability. With your special kind of recruiter card can be a game-changing ability if you're in a tight situation. Don't play it too early, but if you play it at the right moment, it could get you out of something really, really tight.
Or it could put you in a position where you can just steamroll the rest of the game. So that is one thing that I think is crucial here. Don't try and hold on to things for too long in this game.
Sure.
If you see an opening, take it,
Yep.
because it's probably the right decision.
Yep. Over here to the recruiter, over here to the rogue agent
There's
side.
actually one more thing that we can talk about.
Yep,
It's like
No,
using
sorry.
Immortals and all that.
Yep, exactly. Now when it comes to playing with the Immortals,
They are key to make this puzzle with a recruiter work.
yeah.
They're a little bit more tricky. The Immortals have the capability of really controlling how the game state flows, right? However, if you're too obvious with the placement of your Immortals, the other guy's going to notice. You're going to give the rogue agents more information that you bargained for, and you're going to make the game easier for them. So what you want to try to do with your Immortals is to maybe have one Immortal all over on the side of the board that's focusing on the symbols that you actually want protected. And maybe the rest are
Playing this matching game.
yeah,
Yeah.
just distracting
Stressing
the
them out a
rogue
little
agents.
bit, making them wonder why you have someone on 2 of these subversion booklets.
But what you're really focusing on is nobody come near this guy, okay? Nobody touch them.
Down there on the suggestive graffiti. Yeah. Really, they become a core strategy into the game, and I think the more games you play, the more you realize how manipulative you can be with them. Again, one thing to remember, the rogue agents, they're only going to see these guys on the board.
Yeah.
So that visual cue and those step tokens become the information that they have to play off of and can actually sway where their attention is quite a bit. Yeah, it becomes a big distracting element.
Like, I feel that you could, to some point, as we said, remember that the Immortals block every type of action. It's something that I've been kind of wanting to try, but you could potentially make all your Immortals gather in an area. Let's say that we're at the end of the game here.
Sure.
We're like at round 13, there's a bunch of step tokens everywhere. You could potentially do a Hail Mary pass here.
Just
Concentrate
knock
them
'em down.
there. No, but here's the trick. You're not really
You're
there.
not there. Yeah.
But you're making them think so.
My
Especially
attention-
because you're like in a really tight spot.
My attention is going to go right to this corner because I assume you're trying to end the game somewhere on one of their platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Now moving over here to the rogue agents, I think the biggest element that you need to figure out early game and throughout consecutive gameplays going to be these mind tokens.
Oh yeah, they are key.
How you take notes, how you track footprints throughout the course of the game is going to be a big part of revealing where the recruiter might be. And I honestly, the how to play gives you some guidelines. Like, always make sure you write down the time code on any information you record so you know when you put down that information. Or, for instance, if you tell me, or for instance, if I ask about these subversion booklets and you tell me, no, I haven't been on any,
Because I haven't been on any.
it could be really beneficial to go ahead and indicate and mark every single one you haven't been on. So I can see potentially a path. Like, for instance, I know you were here, but it doesn't seem like you went up and around, right?
And the way that it's recommended in the rulebook to kind of denote that is to write the hours from the entire range and then put an X at the bottom. That immediately tells you from 1 to 6, from 1 to 6, the recruiter was not even close to a subversive.
And these are notes for you to take. So one of the things that I've done is done some shakedowns and taken notes on what you definitely aren't tracking and place that close to where I think you were. You really have to figure out your own system, but this is all you have to take notes with. So be sparing, but also be specific.
Yeah.
These notes are going to be what lead you to your prey.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that don't be scared of taking notes back, especially if they're non-confirmed notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Confirmed notes have to stay on the board.
Yeah, that's a really important clarifying note there.
Yeah.
Like, once that's been flipped to the white side, remember it's going to be red and then white.
Yeah.
You can never move it, change it, anything. It is locked in place.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to point out, one of the things that I think I undervalued the first few times we played the game is going to be revealing, getting accurate information. I've seen multiple games where we've tracked each other in the wrong direction.
Yes.
We found a trail, We started following the trail, figuring out the clues, even captured a bunch of cards from the other player. But by the end game, they were on the opposite side of the board, and we had found the path and followed it backwards.
Yes.
I think it's worth to say, using your reveal to find out the direct time code, especially in an instance like this. I can see a pathway here. I know you've moved somehow. If I pop in here and I reveal 100% that you were here on round hour 10, and then maybe I check here and this one is round hour 9, I know what direction you're going.
Yep.
And that becomes really, really valuable. Way more valuable than you realize when you first play the game.
Yep.
I usually go for capture and shakedown mechanics when I probably should have utilized a few extra reveal mechanics.
And these are the type of things that training mission is going to help you understand.
They will.
Again, it's all about the behaviors and the way that you approach the game.
Yeah. If you're playing the game on hard mode first, so based off of everything we've just taught, some of the behaviors and nuances to the gameplay probably won't become clear until a game or two in.
Yep.
The training mission will be less complex. You know, it'll walk you through and reveal some extra information to both players, but it will teach the behaviors that you want to have when you play through the story mode or the campaign of the game.
Yep.
I think both are reasonable ways to start learning, depending on what type of gamer you are. I know our group always dives in hard mode first, but we had to do so with the understanding that we probably wouldn't get everything until we played another 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So, you know, good to know. So now that we've said that, you can make your own decisions. And with an excellent how to play video like this, brought to you by Quackalope, I think you're ready to do either of those two options. Both are entirely reasonable. Another thing to mention when it comes to the agents here, their powers and abilities are asymmetric and really, really powerful when chained together. They can be a little bit much for a single player to keep track of. Make sure you've read over them a few times, thought about how you can implement them, and read the text aloud every time you use one of their cards. That is key to make sure that you utilize the ability.
Yeah. And another thing to make, to take note, some characters actually have actions, not free actions. So you can't really combine too much.
Yeah, well, just something you want to pay attention to. I think they're ready to play.
I think so too.
Or I suppose, because this is going to be on Kickstarter, I think they're ready to back the game, and then
with a good understanding of what it is. With
a good understanding of exactly how this game plays, and then hopefully this will be a really good resource and guide for you to learn how to play the game when you actually get it into your hands. Genuinely, I'm super excited about this one. I've had a good time learning it. I'm excited to kind of table it with some of our other friends who love these hidden movement, hidden sort of mystery-based games. Whatever the case, if you've watched to this point, we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, super cool that you spent time with us. Hopefully, we've displayed and talked about and showed off this game in a way that lets you determine if it's right for you or wrong for you. That's always our hope. We want you to play games that you're going to fall in love with and give you the information necessary to allow you to do so. If you've made it to the end of this video, you're probably already aware, but it's worth noting one more time. We have a how to play video still up on the channel. So if you want to see how this game functions and the way that players interact, it might be worth going to check that out as well.
Did you mean gameplay? We're doing the how to play right now.
I said gameplay, did I not?
No, you said how to play.
Along with that, if you've made it to this point in the video and you're still curious about exactly how the game flows when players are functioning on the board, we have a gameplay video over on the channel as well. So it might be worth hopping over there, checking it out, hitting subscribe on your way over.
Yeah, and you might discover some things about this game that weren't necessarily supposed to be there. Who knows?
Yeah. Whatever the case, whatever you do,
remember to do the important thing.
Get out and play some games.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, guys.